Hello, thank you for joining me.
Hello, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Loving the conference. This is fun.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's NOSH treating you so far?
Very well, very well. It's amazing to see the breadth of people here, from the really big heavy hitters to the entrepreneurs and all the support people in between.
So tell us a little bit about Tribe 9 Foods and specifically what your role there entails.
Yeah, Tribe 9 Foods was born out of I kind of refer to it as a merger of three brands. It was an investor that came in. He's our CEO, Brian Durst, and he brought together RP's Pasta Company, Ona brand, and Yum Butter brands as one natural foods company for better for you brands, improving lives through food. I was CEO and founder of RP's and had developed a gluten-free pasta, and so it kind of grew the company quickly. And so this opportunity to be able to scale with Brian's involvement was wonderful. So I'm currently Chief Creative Officer, which kind of gives me a lot of creative liberty, not so much in the marketing world.
So what specifically does Chief Creative Officer kind of control in the food space here?
I still do a lot of product development, process engineering, a lot to do with the actual quality of the product, along with I also have duties of national food service sales.
So I feel like a big thing today has been a lot of talk about innovation and the push for innovation. I think that's happening a lot in the pasta space and the nut butter space. So how do you know what's needed in a category as far as innovation, and how far do you push innovation?
Wow, that's a big one, because being very traditional Italian from my background of just experience in Italy, I really kind of poo-pooed any dietary restriction changes to what I saw as a classic traditional food in the pasta. But then a friend of mine actually got diagnosed with celiac, and I kind of like, wow, how would I feel if I had to give up pasta? It's like part of my life, and it's a staple. So I actually came up with this gluten-free pasta, and from there, I started changing my philosophy about what pasta is. If it eats like pasta, regardless of what it's made of, then we can call it pasta. And I really changed that. And so with now the new pushes in the pasta category, in the grain-free and vegetable contents, really pushing it as far as we can to get as much vegetable into these pastas as possible, and while making it still eat like pasta. In the nut butter world, obviously keto. Keto is our newest product line coming out of the Yum Butter space, just kind of coming out as we speak. So it's very exciting to see that trend come.
And speaking of keto and trends, how do you when you're innovating, how do you know if a trend, well, it's hard to know, but if a trend has staying power or is just something that's going to be a flash in the pan? How do you know?
Well, does anybody know?
What's your approach to it?
Well, the approach is being able to react quickly, while entering without a really large liability. So being able to kind of put your toe in the water while being able to continuing to supply without any gaps. So if you approach the market and the product hits the shelf and it does really well, you have to have planned to be able to react really quickly. Whereas at the same time, if a trend comes in and it hits the shelf and it tanks or just doesn't perform as you expected, that you don't have, like $100,000 of packaging sitting on the floor, going to waste. So a lot of pre-planning and thought goes into launches that way.
And we actually just covered on the NOSH site that Taste Republic went through a bit of a rebrand. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Absolutely.
So from the RP's Pasta Company, we did the gluten-free pasta used to be under the RP's Pasta brand. As the gluten-free grew rapidly, we chose to differentiate by rebranding it as Taste Republic. We kind of did that a little bit quicker than we should have, and I think this is, even though we've been in business, I've been doing pasta for almost 25 years now, you can do knee-jerk reactions and do something a little bit too hastily. So we actually went back to the drawing board, did a little bit more consumer research, and came up with a new package design that we all love. It's a lot more approachable. I just think it's a much softer touch to it.
So how did you kind of decide that it was time to redo the packaging?
Buyer response and sales.
Okay, because you guys went from you had the image of the mouth and everything, and now it's very simple. Is that something you want to focus on, is kind of paring it down?
Yeah, well, Like with anything that is a very strong image, or even if you go to a recipe, a very strong flavor, anytime you approach those edges of the envelope where we wanted to be very edgy, sometimes you find that you start reducing the people that it appeals to. So we kind of wanted to dial that back and again, make something, come out with something that was a little bit more approachable.
And for any brand, when you're doing a rebrand, how do you kind of keep a through line and make sure you still have that value or the thing that's still familiar with consumers?
Well, in our case, I think our marketing team is doing a very good job getting the message out there. And the most important thing is don't mess with the product at all. I mean, the product is still phenomenal, and it's as soon as people try it, they're going to go, yes, this is the same Taste Republic, and keep buying it.
And kind of going back to pasta innovation, I feel like it's really gone through, pasta went from empty carb to like a superfood. So can you kind of walk us through the evolution of where you think pasta's going next?
Gosh, I'm not sure if I can answer that question. I keep on working on it. I mean, I will say I spent a lot of time doing my research and looking to see what's out there. But in my opinion, pasta has always been like a wonderful comfort food. It's always typically been higher in protein, but there is that glycemic index spike that we all are now addressing and trying to be more mindful of that.
And what about as far as the nut butter category? Where do you think that's headed? The hard-hitting questions here.
Well, I think the nut butter category has actually moved pretty quickly into a very acceptable consumer space. As in our nut butter line, our superfood ones that have the inclusions of the goji berry and chia and hemp seed. So it actually does have more function to it as a dietary inclusion than just good fats and nuts.
So what can we expect for the coming year for Taste Republic and RPs?
We've got some new products on deck. Still finalizing some of the R&D and commercialization. Actually, when I get back to the office on Monday, I'll be hard at it right away.
Nice.
Actually, I have a lot of customers requesting some new items, and it's actually very exciting to be doing that, especially when it comes from a consumer poll. It's a little bit, it's a lot easier to develop towards something that's been suggested than the white space when the category can be so big.
Well, I think that's all the time we have, but thank you so much for joining me. This has been very interesting, learning all about pasta.
Did you enjoy the video? For more from NOSH, hit subscribe and ding the bell.